By the end of this episode, you are going to have more clarity around why you kept holding on, even when things got really, really bad with your narcissistic ex. I can tell you that this is a really humbling experience. To have worked so hard to get up the courage to leave a relationship that you already were so back and forth in the confusion of should I stay or should I go, you finally get up that courage to feel and honor that fuck this shift. You're like, fuck this. I cannot do this anymore. And you make the courageous decision to step into the unknown, even though that also feels scary. But the fuckery that you're in that relationship is like that pain is too big anymore to continue to stay there. So you take the leap and you end the relationship. And then there's a part of you that's like, okay, I'm out of the fuckery. I'm out of that mind fuckery. And now I'm going to feel freedom. And often what happens first is a whole like onslaught of awareness around what the fuck just happened. What was that? Who was that? Why did I stay in that? And you can find yourself like finally putting these puzzle pieces together and seeing this whole puzzle. And it's a really screwed up image. And you're like, how was I living in this puzzle? How did I not see that? And you can find yourself going down the YouTube rabbit holes, trying to figure out, what did I miss? Learning more about narcissists and how they behave and narcissism and codependency and attachment styles. And you're clawing and you're clawing and you're looking and you're searching and you're reading and your eyes are bleeding and you realize that it's 3 a.m. and you have more questions than answers. So then your mind shifts over to, okay, I'll just reanalyze everything that happened and pick it apart and try to figure it out. Right? There's a part of you that's really good at analyzing. Likely that part has made you very successful in your life. Analyzing is a superpower of yours. And so you're like, okay, I'll just replay every fight. I'll just go through all of the text messages. I'll reread all of my journals and I will just research the shit out of it and I'll find the answer. I call this the research trap because it feels like you're doing something. There's that momentum there. And you get maybe little hits of dopamine if something for a moment connects. But overall, it can feel more overwhelming with all of these waves of information just coming at you, these memories resurfacing of what happened. And the fact that you're doing this, the fact that you're trying to research and trying to make understanding and try to really comb through the past doesn't mean that you're broken. It means that you are stuck. And you're likely feeling two things. The first is really intense confusion, right? You're looking back again at this person. You're realizing like, God, I actually did call the cops several times. Or I actually did lock myself in my room most nights because I was scared of him coming in. Or I actually did hide all of his relapses. And I fell into the guilt trips. And it wasn't even a trip that I was going on. It was like a sustained way of living. I just lived in guilt, stewing in a pot of guilt all of the time. That was almost like immobilizing, like paralyzing. The guilt that you felt likely kept you from taking any action, seeking out connection or support, right? It was really impactful to the way that you were living your life. And then on top of all of that, you see all of these moments of disrespect. You see how you actually funded his entire life, how you didn't make him show up equally financially, how you allowed him to maybe not have a job or not have to work as hard as you were working when you're working your ass off. And you received bare minimum of emotional support or companionship on top of all of it. Like when you have that aha or that light bulb go off, it can feel like a really intense spotlight that is just redirected on you. So the first thing that you likely feel as you are uncovering all of this is confused. Why did I hold on? I can see all of this now. Why did I hold on? And there's a confusion here in part because you've likely watched movies of women being in abusive relationships, and it's always been sort of that other experience. Like that is what other women go through. And so to have to to really sit with the fact that you were in an abusive relationship or a manipulative relationship or a relationship where you've been gaslit and convinced that you were the problem for the entire time, that is hard. That's a hard mirror to look in, because there's another part of you, most likely, that has this judgment around women who end up in these relationships as them being dumb or somehow like have their eyes closed or their head in the sand, right? So that part of you is like, well, we're smarter than that. We're smarter than the women who fall into these relationships. And so to be in that relationship, to see that you were in that relationship, is almost like it's a threat to your sense of self. Who am I? I don't actually know who I am anymore. And if I did fall into that relationship, what does that mean about me? So that confusion really turns into shame. And what happens when we feel shame is that we isolate. So you likely have not told people actually how bad it was. I cannot tell you. And this brings me so much, like I feel so honored when this happens in the free intro session that I have. When women are interested in my program, we get on Zoom, we have a 60-minute session really going through what's happened, their story, and if they are appropriate fit for my Becoming program. So I've had so many women show up to that session. I've never met these women. They have likely listened to the podcast like you're listening right now. So they have a sense of me on some level and feel safe in my energy. But they will come on to this session and they will share things with me that they have never said out loud to anyone. And some of these women have been in these abusive relationships, these narcissistic relationships, these toxic cycles. There's a spectrum of where women come in, but they have been in these situations for years. And I can see in their body when they say something that they've never said out loud, it's a moment of like tenseness. And then when they see that I can hold that information, it's like they drop a 1,000-pound backpack that they've been carrying. And sometimes they cry and feel even more release. And it's such a powerful moment for me because it was so clear to me that that's a first moment for them in a long time where they have actually felt safe. It is scary to share the details of this relationship. It's scary to say out loud to somebody how many times you believed his apologies after he emotionally abused you or physically abused you or financially stole thousands of dollars of yours or went on a bender and relapsed, right? It's like there's so much shame there. And they have really been living in this reality of being alone and unseen and invalidated. And that's a really painful place to be. So on top of the confusion and the shame and the isolation, there's also anger. And it's not just anger at your ex. There probably is anger there, but there's a lot of internal anger that's happening. A lot of judgment. Again, in a similar vein of like, I'm not the woman who falls for that. When you can look back in hindsight at the relationship, sometimes that judgment part will have you ruminate on all of the fights and all of the things that you could have said or should have not said. It has you obsess on all of the moments and the lies and the betrayals. And it's almost like looking back on these memories, putting these little red flags all over the place of like, oh, missed that, oh, missed that, oh, missed that, oh, missed that. The internal judgment of, why did I not see that in the moment? Why did I not react differently in the moment? And then because that internal anger feels really uncomfortable and likely there's not a skill there to be able to be with that anger in a healthy way, oftentimes we revert to focusing that energy on the person who caused the pain and trying to get them to understand what they did, trying to get them to see that we tried everything. Look at how many times I took you back. Look at how many times I believed your lies. I remember this so vividly with my narcissistic ex. In the early days of breaking up with him, there were still moments where he was trying to kind of hook me back in, and I hadn't gone no contact yet. It took me gosh, it took me several months to finally get to the point of no contact. And so he still had access to me via texting. And I was starting to have some of these memories or these awarenesses pop up. And I was just like, oh my God, can you not see how hard I tried? Because part of what he was doing was the confusion factor of sending me a lot of messages about how horrible I was and how I made the wrong decision and how I've put him in a really bad position. And then he would switch to sending me pictures of our relationship, like different memories throughout our trips that we had taken. And it was so confusing. He was just sort of like trying to get me to feel guilty or go down memory lane of how good these memories were. And I was receiving this from him, and I'm just like, you motherfucker. Like, did you not see how many times I tried? How many lies I held for you? How much acceptance, how much forgiveness I gave. And so I tried texting him, like walls of text messages, of explanations of why. Why are you doing this? Can't you see this, that I did this? And I was trying to reason with somebody who had no interest in reasoning or no interest in finding repair. And that's a really important part that I teach my clients, is that it doesn't matter what you say. They are not looking for completion. They're not looking for a smooth ending. They're not looking for understanding. They're not looking for repair. They're looking to rev you up. And so the more that I gave him, the more that he threw back at me, which also at that period of my healing, I didn't understand narcissism. I didn't understand what he was doing. And so it compounded to this confusion factor of like, what in the actual fuck? And I use the word mindfuckery a lot. And I use that in terms of talking about healing from these relationships, because if you don't know what that is, it can make you feel like you're crazy. It can absolutely send you down a spiral hole. So I wasn't getting answers. I wasn't getting completion. I wasn't getting anything from that. And I learned that eventually. But that's just an example of how I felt so internally incapable of being with the anger and making sense of the anger that I had to redirect it out. And that just caused more confusion and more anger. So what you're doing in the researching of trying to understand, and in the replaying of the memories, going through the journals and trying to understand, and maybe reaching out to him and trying to understand, right? It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. What it means is that you're really trying to make sense of what happened with knowledge. You're trying to understand from external sources what happened for you internally. You're trying to make sense via other people why you stayed, and really you're looking for outward validation that you're not broken or flawed or stupid. And why is this not working? Why is none of these actions that you're taking feeling fulfilling or feeling relieving? It's because that validation is never going to come from somebody else or somewhere else. Information can be helpful. Yes, of course. That's why I have this podcast, to give information. But if you're looking to really heal, especially from the mindfuckery of this relationship, you got to go within. This has got to be an inside job. Finding validation comes from acceptance and self-forgiveness of yourself for your actions, because you made them at the time that you made them for the reason that you did. Going within and having the tools to forgive yourself for all the times that he obliterated your trust, but you chose hope instead. For all of the lies that you forgave, for all of the moments that you sacrificed a need or a want, for all the moments that you really let pieces of you go and you abandoned yourself in order to keep the peace with him and to safely process the grief. Because this is not just an ending of a relationship. This level of heartbreak is not like you broke up with somebody who's more on a healthy dynamic. You're dealing with abuse. You're dealing with being gaslit. You're dealing with manipulation. And there's a lot of consequences for you mentally, emotionally, physically from that type of relationship. So you're not just grieving that the relationship ended. You're grieving who he actually is showing you that he is for real versus who he promised to be, right? You're grieving having to letting go of that image that, oh, maybe he'll be able to show up as this person that I need and want. And you're grieving who you were throughout the cycle and how far away you got from yourself. Because I am sure that you feel like a shell of yourself right now. I felt like a shell of myself. And almost every client that I've worked with has come to this moment of like, I poured my entire self into this person. I can now see what a messed up shit show that was. And who am I left with? I don't even know who I am without this person. So it's grieving who you were and who you became and who you lost, and then how to even start again, which is why healing and doing the real intentional work around this relationship so that you can let it go, so you can let this be a chapter in your book and not your whole rest of your story, is so important. You have already given years of your life to your ex. You have given all of yourself to him. And so to not have the right tools to be able to process what happened and find emotional freedom and physical freedom from this person, it will continue to give him years of your life, even if you're not in a relationship, right? Holding on to all of this rumination and anger and self-judgment, it can be self-destructive. It will always feel like he has a grip on you. It will always feel like he is consuming your mental space, even if he has moved on, even if you have moved on, right? Moving on to a new relationship doesn't mean that you've processed your shit from the last one. So it will take away your presence. Part of your mind will always be on him. You won't be able to be present with your new partner or your kids or your family or your friends or these people that you have been really absent with for so long. You'll lose more sleep than you have already lost in the relationship because your mind stays spinning in the trying to analyze and figure out, and it never feels satisfactory, so it stays on all the time. And you won't be able to think clearly at work because, again, part of your brain is always going to be like spinning around this person. So what I do with my clients in my program Becoming is really give them the foundational skills to be able to process the grief, to be able to make understanding from the mindfuckery, to be able to see with clarity what it was, why they showed up the way they did, and how to never do that again. How to change what we need to change in order for them to actually be able to show up with a regulated nervous system, with incredible self-awareness, self-trust, confidence, a feeling of peace inside who they are, so that they never get pulled into these types of relationships again. Right now, you likely don't have the right tools to be able to process the complexity of what has happened to you. And so you are, of course, looking to others or other sources to validate that you're not broken, to validate that you're not stupid. And if there's anything, I want you to get a lot of things from doing work around this, but probably one of the biggest understandings and self-truths, things that feel really strongly certain in your body, is that you are not broken. You are not stupid. You are not crazy. You are not crazy. You went through a really crazy situation, but you yourself are not crazy. And you can find that certainty, you can find that clarity, and you can find the closure and the mental freedom so that you can really heal in every way that that word implies and move forward from him so that you can live your life in the present and move towards your future without staying stuck in your past because you worked really hard to get out of that relationship, like really fucking hard to get out of it. So to stay mentally connected is doing you a disservice, and I want to help get you there. So if you resonate with me and you want to learn more about how I help women do that, please go to the show notes and schedule an intro session. We'll talk about your situation. I'll give you information about my program and we'll see if it's aligned. We'll see if it's a good fit. There is relief from what you're feeling. I can promise you that. Okay, let's take another deep breath. I know that was a lot. And that saying, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off, could never be more true to this situation. So I see you, and you're not alone in this. All right, let's see what the deck has for you today in terms of a message. The Destroyer. I'll find the message in the book and I'll read to you what it says. The Destroyer visits you to acknowledge the ending. Perhaps it's the end of a relationship, a job, or a dream. The Destroyer signals you that it is right and okay to let go, to grieve the loss and look towards new beginnings. Destruction is knowing life's natural cycle and accepting that death is necessary for growth and renewal. Time to let go. It's over. Allow the end to come. Sense into the completion. Embrace it. Endings are important as beginnings. Spring always follows winter. Be aware of your inner destroyer, the little voice in your head that sabotages you, the one that would have you believe that you can't fully live, create, dream, or succeed. Although it may have once protected you, it's time to recognize that this type of destruction no longer serves. Thank it for its work and release it. Woofs, what a perfect card for what we just talked about. I love the reminder of the cyclical nature of life. We go through periods of growth, and then we go through periods of decomposing and starting to lay the fertile foundation, the fertile soil for the next spring to come, for the next growth to come. So right now, you're composting, you're decomposing what that was, what the relationship was, who you were in that relationship. And that is what grief is. It's really letting go and shedding and letting yourself fall back into that fertile soil to see what you can begin to grow in the next season. But we can't jump from summer to spring. There has to be fall and winter there. So this is your fall and winter. And if you embrace that, God, your garden will be so beautiful in the spring. So go to the show notes and schedule the intro session. I cannot wait to meet you and give you some hope and clarity on how you can heal from this. So until I see you in that session, or I see you in the next episode, please remember that you are not alone.